Hello and welcome to Life, Love, and Leadership. I'm Tom Rea, a part of the Real Leadership Company, and joined with me on the line is Bert Copple, my co-host.
Hey,
Bert
good to
Cop,
good to see you, Tom. How are you doing?
good to see you. I'm doing great, thank you. We're so excited today to have a special guest on the line with us. Bert, would you like to introduce our special guest today?
Absolutely. We are thrilled to have the mayor of the city of Warren, Michigan, Mayor Jim Fouts, is joining us. Mayor, it's always a pleasure to have great guests on, and we're thrilled that you're with us today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Mayor Fouts, you've been around in Warren for a while in terms of the political scope. In 1976, I know you first ran for office in the 70th State House District, and since then, you've been on Warren City Council. You served there for 26 years. And I know it was in 2007 is when you first ran for mayor of the city of Warren. And you've won fairly convincingly every single time you've run. The first election, you won 62 to 38%, even in this last election, which I think many people thought would have been closer. It was another decisive win. So obviously, you do a great job. People tend to not reelect people that don't do a good job, right? So that's a good thing. So why don't you talk a little bit, just briefly, about politics? I know you used to be a teacher as well. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And what did you taught in the high school, or where did you teach at?
I taught at Warren High School and then Sterling Heights High School. I taught two specific subjects. I taught American government and I taught psychology. So in politics, particularly in Warren, you not only need to understand government, but also psychology.
That's good. That's good. So what made you want to go into politics? I mean, back in 1976, when you said, I'm going to run for the state, what caused that to happen for you?
Well, I was young and naive in 76, and I was pretty young, and I thought, I picked up a ballot and I said, gee, the individual that's running for state rep is unopposed. He ought to have some opposition. You know, that was kind of my naive view as a young teacher. And so I thought, well, I'll run against him. Well, I got bombed, okay? I got destroyed. I thought all you got to do is go out and give people a choice. And at the time, I was very naive. I thought I was just going to knock on every door. So I used to start knocking on doors at 9 in the morning, and I'd be knocking until 11 at night, believe it or not.
Wow.
I had people call the police on me. You know, they said there's somebody out here, a night stalker, you name it. But I thought I had fire in my belly, and I was naive. I was young and dumb, you might say. And I thought, all you got to do is give the voters a choice. But I appreciate it because what happened, and I think you asked me to talk about what I appreciate or something. I forget the phrase. What was the phrase you used?
Yeah, it's that we have an attitude of gratitude. So definitely something that you're thankful for.
Well, I'm very thankful for my first election and my elections after that because I learned to talk with people. I went door to door and I got sunburnt. And I mean, I went 7 days a week,
Wow.
just about in every kind of weather except electrical storms. And I tried one day and I almost got hit by lightning. So I thought, well, that's the end of that. But I learned to listen to people. And I think one of the most important things all elected officials have to do is listen to what the people say. You know, politicians like to talk, and Jim Fouts is no different. I like to talk. As a teacher, I like to talk. But both as a teacher and later in campaigning, I learned that you learn more by listening. And I know as a pastor, you have to listen to your parishioners, and that's what you learn. So I learned to listen to the people, and from there, I developed a philosophy. And then when I got elected to the city council, I developed the philosophy of being the neighborhood councilman. And at the time, I had difficult challenge with the city council. They didn't like me. I was a minority member of one, and I would raise questions they didn't want to hear about. They would embarrass me. They would berate me. I guess some of the things are going on today with his present council. But I followed a philosophy that I think was Harry Truman's, and Harry Truman was a person I greatly admired. And he often quoted Woodrow Wilson, who had the philosophy, I'd rather fail at what I know will ultimately succeed than to succeed at what I know will ultimately fail. So
Wow.
I had a rough time on the city council. I was the pariah. They made jokes about me. They made fun of me. I remember one councilman said, you know, Fouts, you don't work for a living. You're a teacher. You get the summer off. The taxpayers have to pay for your summer vacation. Well, that wasn't really fair, but they said things like that. And they made a lot of the attacks on me then as well as now are personal attacks. And I learned that, you know, when people have no argument, if they can't debate you, then they attack you.
Mhm.
And I hope the public has learned this. I know I have too. When they don't have anything to say, then they engage in personal attacks. But I knew that I'd rather fail at what I know will ultimately succeed than to succeed at what I know will ultimately fail. So I wasn't afraid to be the minority. And I've always said to my government students that today's minority can be tomorrow's majority. And always remember that the Constitution is about the rights of the minority, not about the majority. The majority can take care of themselves. And I think that's an important concept to realize in the U.S. Constitution as well. The Constitution and the government is here to serve and protect those who need help. And as mayor, I've always followed that philosophy. I'm here to serve and protect the public. I'm not here for Jim Fouts. I'm not here for special interest groups. I'm here to take care of people that may not have a voice in government.
That's awesome. You know, you shared quite a bit there, and I really appreciate you sharing some history, because there's a lot there about you that I didn't know, and I'm sure many other people don't know these things about you as well. We talk a lot in Real Leadership about overcoming challenges and true obstacles, and we're going to talk in a minute here about the whole COVID-19 pandemic and even some of the unrest that's come up. But walk us through your mindset. You know, back in 1976, you run for office. Like you said, you get killed in the election, right? Just not even not even close,
I got
right?
destroyed. I got destroyed.
Okay.
I got a handful of votes. That's
Okay. So you get a handful of votes in that first election, and it would have been real easy, I'm sure. Were you teaching American politics at that time as well in school?
Yeah, I was teaching at that time too.
Okay, so your students got to see their own teacher walk through this.
Yeah, I was new at the time. I was, I think, teaching junior high school, so it was a little different. But and today, of course, it's called middle school. But
right.
You know, you didn't really get your students too much involved in that at the time.
Right.
But I just thought I had a calling, and I wanted to make things different. I thought that I could do something that others couldn't do, and I thought this opponent, who I won't mention, was not really adequately representing people. So, and by the way, I've learned that I don't personally attack my opponent, even though my opponents attacked me.
Sure.
My view is that you kill them. I often said, one time a councilman was attacking me, and I said, Councilman, I'll make a deal with you. You quit lying about me, and I'll quit telling the truth about you. So I've always felt that the truth is more powerful than lying. And I've had some people over the year, and my executive assistant, Amanda, can tell you that I've had some people say, well, you ought to say this to the people. You ought to say this. And I have always said, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, but you can win by this. I say, I will never lie, and I don't lie.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you know, the present council, I won't get into them too much, but they're good at telling a lot of stories about me that are based on fantasy, but I don't lie about them. I just tell the truth. And some reason, when I tell the truth about my opponents, they get mad at me. But that's the deal. You quit lying about me, and I'll quit telling the truth about you.
Sounds
good.
And
by the way, that was always kind of Harry Truman. By the way, I'll give you another philosophy of Truman, which I've learned the hard way in politics. If you want a friend in politics, get a dog. Okay? Politicians, for the most part, are only loyal to themselves.
Right.
And if they can trip you, I had another good friend of mine, a political mentor. His name was Bert Donlin. He said, you know, Jim, politicians are just like beauty queens. When the one contestant trips and falls, they're secretly hoping she'll fall in her face. And they pretend like they feel sorry, but they're happy. And that's the way politicians are. They want to see other politicians fall in their face.
Yeah.
I don't take that philosophy. And I've always felt, and my assistant has told me, you know, you feel sorry for these people and then they turn on you. But my view is not to delight in the misfortunes of others. It's to try to help people become more fortunate.
Jim, what would you say to someone who was like you? They ran for office and it didn't work out. They lost terribly. It was a close loss. And so I'm sure it must be really easy in that moment to say, well, I'm never going to do that again, right? What switched in your mindset over that 5-year period to go from losing an election?
Well, I lost a couple. Well, wait a minute. I lost a couple elections in a row. I ran for state rep a couple more times. And I lost in close elections by 1 or I think 2 points or what have you.
Right.
And even my parents, my mother and dad said, "Why don't you find something else to do? You're a loser," you know. And a lot of people told me, "You're a loser. You're not going to win." And I refused to believe that I couldn't win.
Right.
So I had fire in my belly. And you know, the bottom line is, to thine own self be true. As long as you know what you're doing is right, then go ahead. Never give up. Never say, I'm wrong, as long as I know I'm right. And it goes back to that Woodrow Wilson quote, and it goes back to Harry Truman.
Yep.
And I was always a follower of Truman, and I wasn't an adult or around when Truman was president, but I just have always liked Truman because Truman, the media, by the way, wasn't fair to Truman at all. They were very unfair. They wrongly compared him with FDR. And by the way, let me add one thing about FDR. FDR was held in high esteem, and he is today, but it's interesting to note that today they're taking statues down of various politicians. Well, guess what? FDR did a terrible thing to Japanese Americans. He couldn't put them in internment camps.
Right.
Now, if you're going to take down the statue of Columbus and you're going to take down various statues and a whole host of other people, then if you're really going to look at things, you're going to say, he did this to Japanese Americans. I know this because I had a friend of mine that I went to high school with. He was Japanese American, and he was very bitter about Roosevelt for what Roosevelt did to his parents. Now, I'm not saying I'm recommending this, but I'm just saying that sometimes people who appear to be great are not great, and
Sure.
people who appear to be not so great turn out to be great. I think Harry Truman is now judged by historians as one of our great presidents, and he was a genuine, honest, decent person. But the media wrongly disparaged him and compared him to, FDR.
Right.
So sometimes the media is wrong, and sometimes people are wrong about people. But that's a side point. But go ahead.
It's okay. It's good. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
So 2020 has been unlike any year we've seen in a long time. We haven't seen a pandemic since 1918. We haven't seen some of the other issues that we're seeing today in a while. Walk us through what was going through your mind as mayor of the city of Warren. The economy is doing well. The city of Warren is doing well. And all of a sudden, COVID-19 arrives in March of 2020. What was first going through your mind? And what did you immediately start to think about in terms of planning for what you may have to do as mayor?
Well, number one, I was concerned about it going back to January because I had been reading. I take the New York Times. Actually, I take 3 or 4 newspapers, and I'm kind of a voracious reader. And I'd been reading about these reports about what was going on in China.
Sure.
And I said to a number of people, I said, we better get prepared because this is a serious situation. I wrote some things in my Facebook, and people said, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But I was concerned about this a long time ago. I think we should have taken more steps way back in January, maybe December, because China was undergoing this. And I think one of the first things I wrote, I don't know when I wrote it, it might have been later than I'm thinking of, but I was reading about China and about their wet markets and also about their propensity going back to the time of Confucius to save face. And I knew the culture of China was not going to admit that they were wrong, and they were going to cover up anything bad that happened in China, particularly under the communist dictatorship. Secondly, I knew China had a cultural situation that wasn't good, and that was they have the open wet markets. And in the open markets, which probably go back to the 15th or 16th century, they have all these animals that are live, including bats and rats and snakes and an animal called the civet. And it's interesting to note that the civet, which is kind of a fox-like animal, and bats naturally carry the coronavirus. And you come in and you'll say, I'll take 6 bats. They cut their head off and they give you the bats, or they kill the, but everything is, you know, it's like an open slaughterhouse outdoors.
Right.
That is where COVID-19 began. And the studies show that's where SARS began. That's where a whole host of things. You can even go back to the 60s or 50s with Hong Kong flu. But it's gotten worse because of increased travel and trade and everything. So I felt that more needs to be done about China. We really need to consider doing one of two things. Either we ban travel from China way back in December or January, or we say to China, we are no longer going to have civil relations with you until you shut down the wet markets. Now, I mentioned that in a Facebook post early this year, and everybody criticized me. They said, oh, you can't do that. Well, I think now some people, there's legends people read on the internet, and there was some lab that did it. I don't think it was a lab. But nonetheless, China had these open wet markets that were ripe for making the coronavirus. And keep in mind, the bat is an ancient animal. It goes back to the time of the dinosaurs, and it's carried the coronavirus with it for thousands of years. For how many years it's been around? It goes back to the dinosaurs, how many years ago that is, millions or what have you. As long as you don't kill the bat, as long as you don't eat a bat, you're not going to get the coronavirus. But when they breached that situation, then they made it possible, and because of all the increased travel, that's what happened. Nonetheless, that's my understanding of it. What did I do? I knew that we had to prepare ahead of time. So immediately, and this is when it started becoming aware to us, I think in February, we started a protocol, and I asked our DPW director, Gus Ganem, to print up signs that said, practice safe distancing and cover up your mouth. And then we put up sanitation stations so that you could use that pump to clean your hands. And we provided gloves and masks and things like that. So we were doing that early on. And then with the help of my outstanding assistant, Amanda Mika, later on, she came up with a 30-page protocol on what we need to do. And we started doing things with that. And now we have a protocol dealing with back to work. So we've been working to educate people. We have big charts in City Hall. Of course, we're not open now. And we've been encouraging gloves and masks. I think masks are absolutely the most important thing. And I think what people don't understand is people will say, I don't want to wear the mask because I'm not worried about getting it. And I try to explain to them, the mask is not to protect you as much as it is to protect other people. Right. Because when you sneeze or cough, you give other people the virus. But it's hard to convince people to do that because they feel that they have a right to freedom or what have you. You have a right of freedom of expression, but you don't have to express the disease on your fellow friends or mankind or what have you. So I started working on PrEP way back in February, and I was concerned about it in January. I think more could have been done. However, I don't blame President Trump. I don't blame President Obama. I blame the fact that China was guilty of two things. One, they were guilty of this whole thing about honor and not admitting you're wrong, and secondly, about their culture. So it was about culture and government.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure that answers it, but I think there has to be an understanding of what's going on. And the bottom line is, if we don't insist that China get rid of the open wet markets, or we don't curtail communication with China, it's going to happen again. And the next pandemic is going to be worse.
Right.
This is the beginning of many pandemics. Go ahead, though.
What was your concern then when Governor Whitmer from Michigan then had to put, and she enacted the stay-at-home order, I think it was like March 16th. What was going through your mind as mayor at that point about the businesses in your city, the people of your city? What were your fears and worries, and what were you able to do in terms of working with the governor, if at all, in terms of
Well,
how that was going
I
down?
did work with the governor, and I disagreed with her on some things. Mostly I agreed with her. And I must say that I give A+ grade to the governor. If you read the studies and to date, the latest data is that all the cities surrounding Michigan have an increase in the coronavirus. They have a serious problem. Michigan does not.
Mhm.
That's because the governor followed what Harry Truman said from Woodrow Wilson. I'd rather fail at what I know will ultimately succeed than to succeed what I know will ultimately fail. Michigan is a success. And I've had
Absolutely.
people tell me that the governor is a dictator, and they've used the F word on her to me. And I had one older woman say, I don't like her. She's a dictator. I'm not going to wear a mask. And the woman was like in her mid 80s. I said, aren't you afraid? No, it's all a bunch of BS. I don't believe it anyways. But the bottom line is she saved lives, and ultimately she may save jobs. And that's hard for people to understand,
Sure.
because unless we get control of the virus, we could open up the state, but then we'd have to close everything down. Look what's happened in Texas and Florida and Georgia. They've all said, we don't believe it. We're going to let everything open up. Well, they have a pandemic now. They have a mess. Michigan does not have a mess. So I plead with everybody, listen to science, listen to what the CDC and the medical people say, not the politicians. I respect the politicians, but I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor, and I can't tell you what to do. And so you need to listen to science.
How do you see the outflow of this happening here in the fall? The state has started to open again. You have one of the major, auto builders, GM, is in the city of Warren, and they're some of them are coming back, some of them are still doing remote working. How do you see this playing out in the future for the city of Warren?
Well, it's a challenging time. It's difficult. I'm worried about business. I'm sympathetic to people. I get calls from people all the time. By the way, one thing I'm real grateful about too, if I can share this, is that I have a great relationship with Warren residents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I got nearly 2/3 of the vote in the last election, because people call me as late as 11 o'clock at night. They call me at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they share with me their concerns. And two consistent concerns I get from people of Warren are, number one, I'm concerned about the place I work at. They're not practicing safe distancing. They're not requiring us to wear masks. Would you please help me out? Or I get calls from people that say, I went to this auto dealership. They're complaining about one auto dealership in Warren. They don't have a mask on. They're not practicing social distancing. I went to get my car taken care of, and they're not doing a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other item that they tell me about is people say, I can't get my unemployment check. What can you do? So people are calling me about a variety of things related to this, but they are profoundly concerned about how they're going to pay their bills. And they're profoundly concerned about public safety and about businesses and people following safe distancing and gloves. Now, there are some people that say, I don't believe in it. It's just a lie by the Democrats. I mean, that's what they say. And I'm not going to wear the mask. I'm not going to wear the gloves because it's all a bunch of baloney. But most people tell me that they believe in this.
Right. What went through your mind? So you're going through the pandemic, and that's one crisis, and then all of a sudden, the incident with George Floyd in Minneapolis happens, and all of a sudden you start to see the protesting and rioting throughout the country. Rightly so, right? I mean, there's definitely anger that was there, and for just cause. But you saw a lot of the protesting happening in Detroit, and you saw it in other cities. But in Warren, you had, for the most part, part peaceful protest. Walk us through that and how that was managed and how the city was able to partner with these people trying to express their feelings, but to keep it in a peaceful way.
Well, number one, I'm a government teacher, and I've always talked to my government students about First Amendment rights, freedom of expression. That means you and I have a right to peacefully protest, and I emphasize peacefully.
Right.
So when there was going to be a protest march in Warren, my advisors said, don't go there. They're going to scream and yell at you, and you're going to be embarrassed, and so on and so forth. I said, no, I'm going to go there. Plus, it was hot, and they know I don't like heat and humidity. I'm a jogger, and, so I went. And I didn't know for sure what was going to happen, but
Right.
I gave him a speech, and I said, I want to welcome you to Warren, and I'm here to support your protest. And I talked to Bill Dwyer about it. I said, the police are going to be here to support you and to protect you in the walk. You have a constitutional right to have a peaceful protest, and I'm supporting you in that. Now, there was one young man who I think is friends with some of my enemies on the council, and he made some disparaging comments and tried to accuse me of A, B, or C. And I said to them, I said, look, I'm here to communicate. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to make charges. I'm here to support you. So I don't want to get in a fight with anybody. And they supported me on that. And then some other people kind of shouted him down, and that was it. And I'm proud to say that our police were there to assist them. They had a peaceful protest. And I'm not sure, but I think I helped out because I said, we're here to protect you. Now, a side point is 2 of the leaders were both former students of mine. And so they believed in me. And I had another former student of mine from Minneapolis that heard about it. And she said, Mayor Fouts, I'm really proud of you. And I'm leading a protest movement in Minneapolis. And I learned about government from you, and I feel you inspired me to do good things, and so on and so forth. So I felt good about that. So I try to practice what I preach, and that is that I believe in peaceful protest. Now, I'm not going to defend people who are disparaging police or firebombing or doing things like that, but people do have a right to peacefully protest. They do have a right to disagree, as long as they're not disagreeable. So I support protests, and obviously they had some legitimate grievances.
That's great. The even today at City Council or at City Hall, there's an event happening where a group of people are coming together to pray for the police and also some of the racial. Can you talk about that a little bit? What's going on with that?
Well, I don't know too much about it. A woman did call me about it, and it looked like it was going to be a partisan rally. I don't know if it is or isn't.
Okay.
But she was from another city, and she said she didn't want to do it in her city, and so on and so forth. So I was told she was coming to Sterling Heights. I don't know, maybe she's back in Warren. I haven't talked with her, but that's fine for them to come and support the police. I think that was the initial plan.
Okay.
I think any protest, however, should try to be nonpartisan. I'm nonpartisan. I'm neither a Democrat or Republican. I want our city to continue to be nonpartisan and respect all positions. That maybe sounds Pollyanna or naive, but my view is I represent all the citizens of Warren. I represent the police, and I've got to tell you, I'm very proud of our police, and I think our police are doing a great job. And our police commissioner is outstanding, as is our fire commissioner. And I also respect the right of the protesters to protest what they see as unfairness. So I'm not here to participate in a partisan protest. I'm here to support all people's right to peacefully protest.
That's great. And that's definitely there's a balance to that, to making sure that people have the right to exercise their rights, but also to not take it to a point like it is right now. You see maybe in Portland and Seattle where they're destroying businesses and people's livelihoods.
I disagree with Portland and Seattle. I'm not sure what they're trying to do, but I think they're making a good argument for Donald Trump. Now, if you like him, maybe you like that. And if you don't like him, maybe you don't like it. But I talk with many citizens and they're upset about violent protests. And I say, well, you can't criticize all protesters for the violence. So
Right.
the violence gets in the way of people being able to make a point. I want people to make a point. They have a right to be angry and mad about some things that are going on, but they don't have a right to destroy property or to attack policemen. And I am very proud of the Warren Police Department. I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Have there been some problems? Yeah, there's problems with teachers, there's problem with police. There's nobody that's perfect. But I got to tell you, our officers did a great job supporting the protesters. And I think, the media didn't mention it, but we had a peaceful protest where our police were there to protect the protesters.
Yep.
And some reason the media wasn't interested in that. But if there'd been some fighting or something, then they'd have done a story on it. That's unfair.
Sure.
Sometimes they need to report on good things going on, not just bad things.
Absolutely.
That's just my editorial comment, but sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Any questions, Tom?
Yeah, I so appreciate you, Mayor, and all you've done for our city that we've been a part of for, well, almost 2 decades. So really thank you for all that you've done for that. So I want to ask you a question in regards to the future. How do things look for the future for perhaps your office and how you're handling perhaps calls or inquiries about what people can do, mainly just to get back to whatever normal might be? How is that all working out for you?
Well, as I told people, I can handle the pandemic. I can handle the economic issues. I can handle the civil unrest. But what is difficult is the challenge of the city council. And I know you don't want to get into partisan, but all I'll say is the city council has decided to sue me. That's never happened in Warren history before.
Wow.
And what it is, it's distracting from the city council. I want the council to work with me to serve the needs of the citizens, not partisan politics. Now, obviously they differ with me on that, but we need to focus on taking care of citizen concerns. First and foremost is taking care of this COVID crisis. Of equal concern is getting people safely back to work and taking care of unemployment checks and all kinds of problems. I'm on the phone every day with people who are pleading to have a break in their taxes and need help. So the focus should be on helping people, not trying to get into a needless, costly litigation between one branch of city government and another branch. And unfortunately, today, government officials, I don't believe in that, but whether it's in Congress or whether it's in the state legislature, everybody wants to take a partisan position. My position is, I'm not partisan. I'm here to serve and protect the citizens of Warren. And my interests are subverted, are secondary, I should say, to the needs of the people. And every elected official needs to understand that. That being said, I'm optimistic about the future. I am going to be talking to 2 businesses that want to locate in Warren. I'm very excited about that. They're major businesses, and they're going to locate in an area that currently doesn't have a business, and I'm extremely excited about it. And I think our advertising campaign, Move to Warren, has done that. And I just want to share with you that through our advertising campaign and our efforts with our economic development and DDA, we convinced Cadillac World Headquarters to leave New York and come to Warren instead of Detroit. I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
We have, Cranes Detroit said 2 years ago, and I believe we're still up there, said we were the #1 city in new industrial development investment. General Motors is investing, I think, about $1.5 billion in Warren. I think Chrysler is $1.75 billion. We have the new Menards. We have a whole host of new developments, and I'm going to be announcing some other new developments. So I'm doing everything I can to get more people in here to pay taxes. And one of the things I'm still excited about, although I'm going to have to convince the city council to agree to this, I have been working with Robert Gibbs, who's the foremost planner on new downtowns. And Robert Gibbs planned the new Birmingham. He planned the new Rochester, the Disney World, a whole host of things, even in Australia. And he said, Mayor, I'm excited about your new downtown. He said, I teach a class at Harvard University. This is going to be a model for all new downtowns. And he said, your new downtown is going to generate $200 to $300 million of new investment, probably at least 1,000 or more jobs. And it's going to make Warren the destination place. Right now, Warren citizens, if they want to go somewhere, they go to Detroit, which is fine. They go to Royal Oak, they go to Rochester, they go to Birmingham or Ferndale. Well, this is going to be a destination place. I'm excited about this.
Absolutely.
And it's very exciting, but I have to convince a city council that really doesn't think we need that. But this is going to bring jobs and new taxes to the city. And what I want to do is limit our tax burden on our citizens and provide more jobs and more investment. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited about the future, Warren. And I believe that we can overcome this COVID crisis. I believe if we follow science, people can go back to work. Now, admittedly, when we open up City Hall, we're still not going to do it until the governor's ready. But I think we're going to be able to practice safe distancing. Now, let me just share with you, when we go back to City Hall, we already have a protocol in place. Number one, you're going to have to enter from one entrance, and we're going to have someone there taking your temperature. You're going to have to briefly answer some questions, then you'll be allowed in. You're going to have to make an appointment ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to do everything we can to make sure you have a mask on. We're going to have sanitizing stations available to clean your hands. And we're going to practice all we need. We're going to have protective shields at all counters. And we want to make sure people are safe. We're going to be cleaning City Hall several times a day, the bathrooms equally. And I think when people come back to City Hall, they're going to feel safe and comfortable. And I'm working with all businesses I can to make sure that we can cooperate with them, get them up and going. And I want our businesses to open up. I want our restaurants to open up. Mm-hmm. But we must practice the protocol, or what will happen is we'll open up the business too early and then we'll have to shut it down. And that's what's happening in Florida and Texas, Georgia, and I think California. And so I want people to go back to work, but I want them to be safe.
That's excellent. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, that's awesome. During this Leading Through Crisis series that we've been doing here on Real Leadership, we've actually interviewed some different restaurants and businesses and asked them, how are they handling the situation? And one is not doing well, and another one's doing really well. So we see that this crisis has either caused people to innovate and restructure how they do business, and those that just can't keep up and end up going away. But with that in mind, that's sad for those who are going away, but those who have basically left their doors open now for new businesses to come in and take over in almost a ready-made situation. And so are you seeing a lot of that coming into the city now?
Well, I'm seeing businesses interested in locating in Warren, and maybe that's because of our My Warren campaign, where we advertise and indicate that we will do everything we can to invite you to come in. I mean, we're number one in the metro area in industrial assessment or development, but I'm getting feedback that they're pretty positive, and I want to help. I told any business, whatever we can do to accommodate you, we'll do. And I want to encourage Warren residents to go to these restaurants. However, I do believe that probably you need to do it outdoors, not indoors, and you need to maybe order ahead of time. But I want people to go back to Andiamo's, and I want them to go back to Burger King or wherever it is. But just practice mask and things of that nature, and let's open up the businesses as soon as we can. But if we open them up too soon, we don't follow the protocol, then they're going to have to be shut down. But I'm optimistic that more and more people are coming to the conclusion that science does matter. Now, I'll tell you one sad note. I love the fall, and I'm a big college football fan. And I'm bummed out about the fact that I don't think I'm going to be watching college football this fall. But, you know, that's just, I guess, something we'll have to accept. There's some things that can't happen. But I believe that the future is good for Warren. I think the future is good for our country as long as people follow science and they follow the recommendations. But I do believe we have to go back to work, and we have to have some compromise between safe distancing, masks, and going back to work.
Awesome.
I love hearing the positivity from you, because there's many
Yeah.
mayors and leaders out there who are just, it's doom and gloom. And when your leaders speak that way, the people that live under you begin to feel that way too. And so I appreciate you as a mayor, an independent mayor, really saying that our best days are still ahead of us and we're going to make it through that. And if you can project that, it's going to help.
Well, by the way, can
Yeah.
I say something about leaders?
Sure.
I've only met 2 presidents in my lifetime. You want to guess who those are?
Barack Obama
Right?
and Donald Trump.
No.
No.
Barack Obama, and Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
And what I like about both of them, because I used to talk to my students about leadership. Leadership is having a vision.
Right.
Leadership is being optimistic. Leadership is convincing people that there is a good future for us. And I met Ronald Reagan. I was impressed with him. I know some people are not. I was young when I attended a fundraiser for him before he ran for president in, I think, 79. He spoke for an hour without any notes. He personally met everybody, and he was optimistic. He answered questions, and he was much brighter than what they put across. But what I remember about Ronald Reagan is he was always upbeat, positive. I don't remember him disparaging anybody. I think he said there was a 10th commandment or whatever commandment it was, do not speak ill of fellow Republicans. And he inspired the nation to be positive, okay?
Right.
Barack Obama, I met him, same way, upbeat and positive. Now, when I tell people I like Barack Obama and Ronald Reagan, they say, you need to go see a psychiatrist, you know. But I think presidential leadership, whether it be Democrat or Republican, is all about being a visionary and looking to the future and being positive. And by the way, that was a strength of Harry Truman. I think there's been other presidents likewise that were upbeat and positive. And if you look at the successful presidents, they tend to be positive and upbeat. You can't be doom and gloom if you want to be successful. But I believe the future is great. You just need to accept a few bumps, get over those bumps in the road, and then you'll roll on and smoothly, I hope.
That's excellent. So this, Mayor Fouts,
Yeah.
this is your 4th term, right? So I believe in the
Right.
city of Warren, you can only serve 4 terms as mayor. Is that correct?
No, I can serve 5 terms.
5 terms, okay.
However, the city council added, I don't know why they got into term limits, but they decided to reverse my term. They thought I'd been mayor too long. I guess that's a nice thing that they thought of. And they voted to, and they never even told me, they just added it on. So they want the voters to vote in November on reversing term limits. So I only have 3. So I don't know what that means. I'm in my 4th one. So I don't know if they want me to resign after November or what have you. But I dare say that true term limits is at the ballot box. If you don't like Jim Fouts, you vote him out of office in 2023. And by the way, Harry Truman said about the 22nd Amendment, which term limited the president, he said it's the dumbest amendment in the U.S. Constitution. And the only reason it was passed by a partisan Congress, which at the time was Republican, because they were upset that Roosevelt had 4 terms and they were afraid Truman was going to get 4 terms. So they passed that. But it's undemocratic, in my opinion,
Sure.
because what you do is you create a lame duck president or a lame duck mayor. If they term limited me, then a lot of my department heads, not that they will, but they may say, well, he's not going to be around in a couple of years, so we got to start looking at the future.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not saying I'm going to run. I might not run, but I don't like the idea of someone telling me that you shouldn't continue your term. And let me add this. they passed this a day after a national organization called Best Run Cities and Worst Run Cities announced that Warren was the best run city in the United States, and we were the 35th best run city in, the best run city in Michigan and the 35th best run city in the United States. We're ranked above Grand Rapids, every city in Michigan. We're the best run city. We got the best fund balance. We got the best budget in the United States. We got the best police and fire. Our fire department has won the Gold Award from the American Heart Association 6 years in a row for being the best fire department in the state. Our police department is making rapid strides with the issue of drugs and quick response. And I got an award in Boston from the national organization called the League of Congress and another organization for a Clean City Award from our Operation Blight Sweep. So I'm very proud of what we're doing. And if we're the best run city, then maybe they should reconsider the idea of term limiting. Now, maybe I won't run again, but anyway, that's the city council point of view, and maybe people will vote on it. I do think that if you're going to have a ballot proposal, it ought to be on the city election ballot, not the general election ballot, where they're voting for president, they're voting for national offices, U.S. Senator, Congress, state representative, state senator, county commissioner, all kinds of ballot proposals, everything. It gets lost, and I don't think that's right. And by the way, for the record, the voters approved extending my terms in 2016 by 5 terms. The voters approved it, not me. The voters approved it. Secondly, they got a petition drive to try to stop it. And you may or may not remember, but they claimed they had 8,000 signatures, which is about what they needed. It turned out 6,000 were forged and it failed. That was 2 years later. And then last year, they put out all kinds of things against me, and I won with approximately 60% of the vote. Yep. So the voters have had 3 opportunities to speak on this, and apparently the city council is not accepting of the voters' will. They want to try to confuse the issue. And Harry Truman once said, if you can't convince them, confuse them. So the confusion is to put it on the general election ballot, where you have, there's so many ballot issues that people might be confused. They might just say, do you agree that the mayor should be limited to 3 terms? Well, if you put it that way, they'll say, yeah, that sounds great. Well, the mayor's already in his 4th term. So maybe after that, they'll say, well, the voters only want 3 terms, so you're out of office. So
right.
That's my answer to that. But right now, according to the voters, I have 5 terms. Now that might change.
Gotcha. So if it stays that way after this next term, which will be up in what, 2024 for you?
2023.
2023. So you may be on the ballot for 1 more 5th term if you're willing to go 2 full decades as mayor. So Mayor Fouts, it's been a pleasure having you on our vlog and our podcast today. We really do appreciate it. It's been great to hear positivity from a mayor of a large city, 3rd largest city in the state of Michigan, how things are going to turn around, what steps have been taken. And it was great to hear about your early unsuccess stories in running for office and how you persevered, kind of very Abraham Lincoln-esque, right?
Let me add this. I think through adversity and loss, you become a better person. I've seen politicians who win the first time and they think they're invincible. Jim Fouts lost 3 elections in a row. Okay, I was a loser. I know what it's like to be a loser. Okay, and guess what? That makes you humble.
Sure.
Then when you get elected, you're appreciative.
Yep.
And you don't beat on your chest and say, I am invincible. I know I'm a human being. I know I've been a loser, and I know it's important to serve and protect the citizens of Warren. And the only people I owe my job to is the citizens of Warren, and I'm going to continue to be loyal to them, whether I'm term limited or not, because I'm here to serve and protect the people that got me elected. Without the people, Jim Fouts would be nothing.
And one way that we know that you truly do mean that, you're one of the only mayors I know of that gives out your cell phone number for people to call you at any time. Like you said, 6 a.m., 11 p.m. That takes a lot of guts for any American politician to put their cell phone out there for people to reach out to you. Mayor, if someone does want to get a hold of you, what's the website? Where can they go to learn more about Touch?
They can. I'll give you my home number. I don't care. It's 573-8058.
Okay.
But if they want to go to my website, it's mayor@cityofwarren.org. I
Awesome.
welcome any calls. Now, I've had one person call me at 4 in the morning, and she was mad at me because I didn't answer. Well, I do have a right to sleep. And I had someone else that called me 2:30 in the morning. I will tell you one way I can't talk. I'm a jogger. And
Yep.
sometimes people want to stop me when I'm jogging, but I'm doing it for cardiovascular. And I have made a few people mad. I've had one guy follow me in the car yelling at me to stop and talk to him. And I yelled at him. I said, here's my phone number. I'm on my cell phone. Call me. I said, I can't stop. And that's the only time that I will not talk. But you can call me late at night. And by the way, I talk to residents on Saturday night as well as almost virtually every night. When we have a major crisis, you talk about crisis, when we have a major flood, we've had some major storms on Saturday, I'm on the phone till midnight taking calls.
Yep.
So I'm happy to serve people, but I know that I'm just Jim Fouts, the lowly mayor. I'm a neighborhood mayor. I'm not anything special, and I'm sure a lot of people could do just as good as I do, but as long as I'm mayor, I'm going to do the best job I can.
That's awesome.
Awesome. We thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity. I hope I didn't put you to sleep. Okay?
No, it was good. It was good. Don't forget, you can learn more about Real Leadership Company, realleadershipcompany.com. Thanks for joining in to our vlog this week, and we will talk to you soon. Mayor Fouts, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I appreciate Real Leadership's patience with Jim Fouts. Okay?
You bet. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.